The Beekeeper. The quiet hum of bees filled the warm afternoon air, and Adam Clay watched them with an almost meditative focus. His hands, rough from years of hard living, were surprisingly gentle as they handled the frames of the beehive. He was in his sanctuary, a small rural home surrounded by fields of wildflowers. For Adam, beekeeping was more than just a pastime. It was a reprieve from the storm that had been his life for so long. But peace was not something that came easily to men like Adam. His past had been violent, marked by missions, secrets, and a kind of darkness that lingered, even when you tried to escape it. It was a life he had left behind when he found this small town and rented a modest room from an elderly widow named Eloise Parker. She was kind and unassuming, the sort of person who believed in the inherent goodness of people. For Adam, Eloise had been a small beacon of light in a world that had shown him far too much darkness. One evening, Adam returned from his beekeeping to find Eloise distressed. Her normally warm and welcoming demeanor had been replaced by a look of confusion and worry. She had fallen victim to a phishing scam, a simple but devastating online trick that had drained her life savings. Adam watched as the hope drained from her eyes, her frail hands trembling as she tried to comprehend the cruelty of it. Eloise was not the kind of person who could handle such a betrayal. Her trust in people, in the world, had been shattered. Days later, Adam found her lifeless body in her home. She had taken her own life, leaving behind a note that spoke of her heartbreak, her shame, and her overwhelming despair. Adam stood over her grave, the weight of grief and guilt pressing down on him. He had seen death before, far too much of it. But this was different. This wasn't the result of war or some high-stakes operation. This was something much more insidious, something that preyed on the innocent and left destruction in its wake. And so, Adam made a decision. He would find those responsible. Not just the scammers who had tricked Eloise, but the people behind the system that allowed this kind of evil to exist. He wasn't just seeking revenge. He was seeking justice. Adam's search began in the dark corners of the internet, tracing the scam back to its origins. He had been out of the game for years, but his skills hadn't faded. He was methodical, patient, like a hunter stalking prey. Every click, every message, brought him closer to the truth. It wasn't long before he uncovered a vast network of criminals, all profiting off the misery of people like Eloise. At the center of it all was a man named Derek Danforth, a wealthy businessman who had built an empire on exploitation. He wasn't just a scammer, he was the kingpin of a criminal operation that spanned countries and continents. Adam knew he couldn't take down Danforth alone. But that had never stopped him before. Armed with nothing but his determination and a few contacts from his past, he began dismantling the network piece by piece. He moved silently, striking with precision, leaving behind a trail of destruction that could only be traced back to one man, the Beekeeper. Danforth's organization was vast, but it wasn't invincible. Adam's first target was a mid-level hacker named Rico Anzalone, one of the people responsible for creating the phishing scam that had ensnared Eloise. Rico was arrogant, living in a luxury apartment paid for with the blood money of his victims. Adam watched him for days, studying his routine. He waited for the right moment, then struck. It was swift and brutal. Adam wasn't interested in dragging things out. Rico didn't even see it coming. One moment he was living his life, the next he was on the floor, gasping for breath as Adam stood over him. "Who do you work for?" Adam's voice was calm, almost detached. Rico tried to play tough, but it didn't last long. Fear had a way of stripping away bravado. In the end, he gave Adam everything he needed: names, locations, access codes. When it was over, Adam left Rico alive, but only just. He wasn't interested in killing for the sake of it. Not anymore. He had a purpose now, and he wouldn't let anything distract him from it. With Rico's information, Adam began dismantling the operation from the inside. He hacked into accounts, transferred funds, and exposed hidden transactions. Every move he made brought him closer to Danforth, but it also brought him into the crosshairs of people who wouldn't go down without a fight. One of those people was Lazarus, Danforth's enforcer. He was a ghost, a man who moved through the world unnoticed until it was too late. He had been tracking Adam for days, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came late one night, as Adam was working in a small motel room, poring over stolen data. He sensed Lazarus before he saw him. The subtle shift in the air, the almost imperceptible sound of a door creaking open. Adam moved quickly, flipping the table and taking cover just as bullets tore through the walls. The fight was brutal, a deadly dance of skill and instinct. Lazarus was good, one of the best, but Adam was better. Years of training, of living on the edge, had honed his abilities to a razor-sharp edge. In the end, Lazarus lay bleeding on the floor, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Who sent you?" Adam asked, though he already knew the answer. Lazarus coughed, blood staining his lips. "You're in over your head, Beekeeper." Adam didn't respond. He didn't need to. He left Lazarus there, knowing the man wouldn't survive the night. There was no time for mercy, not in this war. As Adam moved closer to Danforth, the stakes grew higher. He was no longer just fighting for Eloise. He was fighting for every person who had ever been hurt by men like Danforth. The deeper he dug, the more he uncovered about the true scale of the operation. This wasn't just about money, it was about power, about control. Danforth's reach extended into politics, law enforcement, even the intelligence community. Adam's former life as a beekeeper had trained him for this. The Beekeepers were a secretive organization, operating in the shadows to protect national security. But Adam had left that life behind, or so he thought. Now those same skills were the only thing keeping him alive. As he closed in on Danforth, Adam found an unlikely ally in Anisette, a former intelligence officer who had her own reasons for wanting to see Danforth brought down. Together, they formed a plan to expose Danforth's operation to the world. It wasn't just about taking him down. It was about ensuring that no one could ever take his place. The final confrontation came in Danforth's private estate, a sprawling mansion hidden away in the mountains. Adam and Anisette infiltrated the compound, taking out guards with precision and stealth. It was a dangerous mission. One wrong move, and it would all be over. But Adam wasn't afraid. He had faced death before. This was just another mission, another target. The difference was that this time, he was fighting for something more than just orders. He was fighting for justice. The showdown with Danforth was brutal. The man was no stranger to violence, and he fought with a ferocity born of desperation. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Adam was relentless, driven by a sense of purpose that Danforth couldn't understand. As Danforth lay on the floor, bleeding and defeated, he looked up at Adam with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "There will always be someone else. You can't stop it." Adam looked down at him, his expression cold. "Maybe not, but I can stop you." With that, Adam delivered the final blow, ending Danforth's reign of terror once and for all. In the aftermath, Adam and Anisette released the information they had gathered to the public. Danforth's operation was exposed, and the authorities moved in to dismantle what was left of it. It wasn't a perfect victory. There were still pieces of the puzzle that would take years to fully unravel. But it was a start. For Adam, it was enough. He had done what he set out to do. Eloise's death had been avenged, and justice had been served. But there was no going back to the quiet life he had once known. The world had changed, and so had he. As he stood in the field, watching the bees move from flower to flower, Adam felt a sense of peace. It was fleeting. He knew that. There would always be another fight, another mission. But for now, he could rest, at least until the next storm came.